Welcome to Buckets, your daily NBA betting podcast presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. I'm Brandon Kravitz, joined by the market maestro, Michael Fiddle. Two-man action, dribble handoff style on tonight's episode. NBA Jam edition of Buckets. Sign up for Action Pro. Go to actionnetwork.com/pro. Promo code POD20. Get $20 off your annual subscription. You will not regret it. Such an odd week in the NBA, Fiddle. 2 games Tuesday, 2 games Wednesday, 4 games as we're recording this tonight late on a Thursday, and not very good ones. And then you have 7 games on Friday, so some semblance of normalcy, and then 2 games on Saturday. I didn't realize just how much I include schedule advantages and disadvantages in my cap until I started parsing through the last couple of days, and my cards have been so light because I feel like I don't have the edge on the books that I typically feel like I do. Are you having the same problem?
I do make some adjustments for rest spots. I mean, we saw that with the Clippers tonight. I mean, the grandpa Clippers, the elderly statesmen, the Clippers definitely took some late action. And I think that's primarily because they're the oldest team in the NBA and they were, 10-point underdogs to the Rockets. And then you saw that late steam to 8.5. And I think the majority of that was probably the good rest spot. There's not a single back-to-back in the NBA this week. There's not a single 3 games in 4 nights situation in the NBA. It's all like 3+ rest days. As we look to tomorrow's card, Brandon, every single team on both sides of the ball is on 3+ rest. So I track it all, but I don't know how much it's like a driver in my handicapping process. I would say it's probably a driver in terms of market stuff because it's often, we'll continue to use the word, a driver of the injury report, right? It's like you get the most wacky injury reports, which then shakes the betting market when you're on a second leg of a back-to-back on the road and then returning home for the 3-game and 4-night situation. And so I think a lot of that drives the injury reports and the rest spots. And so we're not seeing that this week, which is kind of nice, but we are seeing a lot of rested teams and maybe some less actionable angles. But I love tomorrow's card. Tomorrow's one of the cards that, like, throughout the NBA season that I actually feel best about. And so that's exciting for the 7 games.
And I want to be clear too. It's not just the rest betting on teams with a rest advantage. I think there are a couple of different ways that I play into this. It is all dependent on, to speak your language, it's all dependent on what the market does with it, because there are plenty of times when I look at a team that has a rest disadvantage and then I feel like the market overcorrects for that and that becomes a bettable angle. So it works both ways. And I don't have it working either way right now. And so it's for me a little bit tougher. I have game factors that I add into any cap that I put together for myself, any number that I create. And with all of these teams on 3 days rest, 3-4 days rest, like there's just another factor that I can't include in the line where I feel like my line is different than what the sports books are offering. So then it just becomes, it's almost like the playoffs where it becomes the numbers are the numbers. Now it's just about betting your opinion in some respects.
Game factors. I think that's a term taken from Billy Walters' book, Gambler, Secret Life at Risk, for anybody. And I would say, to the point of rest advantage maybe being overpriced in some situations, 76ers, I believe 7-0 this season with a rest disadvantage.
Nice pull, by the way, with Gambler. And if you do want to pick up that book and you don't want to know about Billy Walters' life, I would just suggest sort of zooming to the end.
Oh, yeah. Hard agree there. And I don't read at all. I read street signs and I read some sports articles, but I read gambling books. So that one was an easy one for me to pull out.
Yeah, maybe off season.
You like that? You like how it was like game factors? That
was great
term right there. Yep.
And so just to dovetail off of that real quick, I have and that's specific to the NFL, but I do that for every sport now, and I've come up with my own game factors and things that I think are valuable that I can work into a number, and that's where I feel like, especially with how much I live and breathe the NBA and working with the Magic and seeing this league night in and night out, I feel like I have a really good beat on those things, then I can price it properly. And not that I'm ever going to sit here and say I'm smarter than the sports book, but I do think the books will overreact to certain things that I can take advantage of. And this is just one of those weeks where that's not present. And a lot of the injuries, like, injury stuff is such a huge part of that. There's nothing bigger in the NBA than beating the injury report or waiting until the injury report comes out, then the line shifts in a major way and you bet it in the other direction. However it happens, we know about these injuries for 2 days. The value is zapped, so it just becomes essentially, how do you feel about the number? How do you feel about the teams in their current form?
I actually hate that the injury information is all known. Like, I feel like that's actually an advantage if you study beat reporters and what the coaches are saying and like read the tea leaves. It's called probabilistic modeling, if we're using another gambling term, on how to price players that are questionable or whatever. Seeing all of it hit the board before the lines are really out, or like they're all out and it's consensus and the information comes in and then just the whole board just like shuts down and reopens at the new number that's properly priced. It actually creates some less advantages for some people who are like knee deep in the weeds of this stuff. So I prefer a lot of that uncertainty, but despite that, I actually still feel this is a very strong card.
Good. I definitely like this one better than what we've had the last couple of nights. I think the biggest issue I've had has been with the cup, because those are so isolated, and it's not like a playoff series. You can kind of feel the ebbs and flows of matchups, and then a bounce back and things of that nature. There's no, like, the Magic and the Knicks. They've played each other a couple of times this year, but it's not like this is a series. Things like that. What did you learn tonight, by the way? I was locked in on, other than the Bucks and the Falcons frustrating me to no end, but I was watching the Pelicans and the Blazers. Don't let that 4-22 fool you, by the way. This team's 8-3 against the spread in their last 11. Jordan Poole came back, dropped 22 in his return. The rookies went wild. So that's a team that in their current form, I'm definitely going to look to continue to back here. I know you were on the Pelicans as well. What else did you pick up tonight?
Yeah, I was watching the Bucks Celtics and getting a load of Porter Jr. Like, he said before the game, given all the Giannis speculation, that they're about to go 8-0, 9-0, and still everyone's going to talk about where Giannis is going to go, and they're not going to talk about how well the team is playing. And then he came in and really backed it up against a Boston team that's genuinely good on the perimeter. Like, Boston's lone weakness is in the front court, and Porter Jr. drops a triple-double, sans Giannis, and just leads that team to victory. Incredibly efficient. He played amazing. And so I was actually glad to see that. I was on the under for that game, and 127 points scored in the first half, Brandon. 90 in the second half, and I come home with the win. So it was me just rooting for misses, but also Kevin Porter Jr. was doing everything for the Bucks. So it was just really impressive. So I was watching that and just being like, the Bucks do have a semblance of some guys and some difference makers who are probably underrated. But without Giannis, they're obviously nothing. But it was nice to see him back up his statement. So I was just very impressed with him.
And Bobby Portis with a nice sixth man effort, 27 points off the bench. But anytime you can bet an under and get the Celtics on a cold shooting night, because they're going to jack up those threes. They shot 29% from long range, 14 of 49.
They were 0 of 15 in the start of the second half from three.
My God.
Yeah.
And they're just going to keep shooting them. Like, they do not adjust their style whatsoever. They're just going to keep firing, and beautiful, beautiful side to be on. So nice, profitable night, but we press on. Nobody can hop in a time machine and cash bets that have already taken place. So let's get to it. We're going to hop to our best bets on the Friday slate momentarily. Almost forgot what day it was. But first, an important message from Matt Moore.
The Buckets Podcast is teamed up with DraftKings Sportsbook, where new customers can bet $5 and get $200 back in bonus bets if your bet wins. Stay in on the action and use your bonus bets on DraftKings same-game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. To get started, use promo code BucketsNBA when signing up with DraftKings. Again, use code BucketsNBA when signing up and bet $5 to get $200 back in bonus bets if your bet wins. The crown is yours.
All righty, let's get to it. NBA Jam style. I'm going to toss it up to you. That ball's going to be on fire, and you're going to slam it through the hoop. There it is. You brought it to the pod. All right, what is your 3-star bet of the night?
I'm going with the Indiana Pacers plus 7.5, picking up right where he just left off. 76ers don't have a rest disadvantage, so no, I'm kidding. That's not the driver of the cap here. But I think this is a strong spot to back the Pacers. I do think this is the one thing that a break in action might lead to is game planning being a priority. And so you might see coaching be a bigger factor in some of these games with 3 days rest, because these teams are going to have practice and film study in the meantime. So I think this is a good spot to actually back the Indiana Pacers. And then you look at the injury report for this game, and they are going to have Siakam, who's been great this season despite being on a poor team. They are going to have TJ McConnell, who missed a large chunk of the season. So Mathurin is back for this team. So a lot of the guys who you want to rely on as a driver for Indiana Pacers are actually back in action. And I think it's just like Nesmith is like the one guy who I really care about to be out for the Pacers. But I think this is a spot to buy them because they're healthy, similar to buying the Pelicans tonight because they got healthy and got Poole back. So I think this is a good opportunity to buy Pacers plus 7.5. And I'm also playing the money line. I think there was a plus 240 out there, but I'll look up the spread money line conversion table that I have and say that if you have a plus 7.5, you should be looking anywhere better than plus 234. So if you can get anything better than a plus 234, I would also play the money line.
Joel Embiid is probable for this game. Does that and Tyrese Maxey? I mean, that's the most important figure on the Philadelphia side. But how much did that factor in for you when it came to betting Indiana? Because there is definitely a case to be made that betting against Philadelphia is more comfortable when Embiid is out there, with the way that this team has played so fast and really driven through Tyrese Maxey when it's not Embiid, and usually you get a better price on the Philadelphia 76ers as well in that scenario.
Yeah, so I mean, so much of my basketball opinion is baked into the betting market, shaping my opinion, Brandon. So I'm still on the side that if the market's going to move 2 points, 2.5 points, it's probably not what it was at the beginning of the season with Embiid in, then he's still a plus for your team. This line still prices Embiid fully in. And I do think that it's fair to say against the Indiana Pacers, who are going to play so up-tempo, that like this might be one of the matchup spots that becomes in Indiana's favor to have him in there. So I think like this is one of the rare spots where you'd say, okay, it's a really good matchup. And since this line is priced with him already in, then, you know, if probable goes to, I mean, at this point, it's fair to say probable for Embiid is questionable is doubtful, right? So probable changes, you'll have a great number, but if probable just goes to in, you're not going to see 8s and 8.5 show up. It's going to be 7.5. And I actually think there's going to be some resistance in the market. So I think this might close 7, maybe 6.75 if you're looking at a plus 6.5 minus 105, you know, minus 6.5 minus 115 on the other side.
I like it. I'm probably going to end up there as well. My modeling makes this 76ers minus about 6.5. So that's seems like good value to me. I'm with it. I'm going to go with the Golden State Warriors minus 4.5 against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Couple of things to really like about this one. For one, we get Steph Curry back. And to me, he's not the type of star that I think needs to get reacclimated. When I talk about game factors, one of them is a bump down when you bring a star back into the lineup. I don't do that with Steph Curry because I don't think that trope works here. It's Steph. I mean, he is as plug and play and as needed for this Golden State team as any other star in the NBA. 60% cover rate on their home floor this year, so we like that. But what's even more striking is their scoring margin at home. The Warriors are plus 1.8 on the season in terms of scoring differential. They're plus 8.5 at home. That's the biggest gap from neutral to home in the NBA. Biggest gap in the entire league. And Minnesota has got to prove it to me first because they have been really, really good against bad teams and really bad against good teams. The Wolves are 13-1 straight up against teams sub 500. They're 2-8 against teams that are above 500. And Ant popped up on the injury report. So if that were, I don't think that's all that factored into the line here, but if he does end up getting announced out, my God, will we get closing line value on Golden State? So I like the Warriors minus the points here. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I played Warriors a little bit early in the market cycle, so I'm with you. They've been playing just fantastic basketball even without Steph. Like the second half that they played against OKC, the game that they followed up against Philadelphia, like it's honestly been he gets a lot of hate for it, but it's been some Steve Kerr masterclasses that have gone on. Draymond's going to be out for this game. We do know that. Something personal popped up with Draymond. The only thing I would disagree with that you said, Brandon, is that this line does definitely at this point at 4.5, it definitely does hinge on Anthony Edwards. But I actually think when a player comes up questionable like this after the 3 days rest situation, it's probably not a good thing for that player. So I think it's probably a pretty bad sign for Ant. But I think whether or not you'll have a good line at close with this depends on which way Ant goes. But regardless of that news, I definitely still like the Warriors in this spot.
Where do you think the line goes if Ant is announced as active? How much movement are we seeing here with this? Does it drop? I would think like 2.
Yeah, I think that let me pull up his exact value. So if for Anthony Edwards, he's the 9th most impactful player ATS in the NBA at 3.9. So I think that's very fair that it might go 2 each way. And we were seeing Golden State minus 2.5 show up in market before that news came, and then it got pushed to 4.5. So 6.5 with him out, 4.5. I mean 6.5 with him out, 2.5, maybe 3 with him in, because I do think Golden State's still going to be the clear sharp side for this game. That's probably the right place to put it. If I'm looking at market ratings and model for this game and it's Timberwolves at Golden State, it's Golden State minus 3.7 in my model. So even if it's at the 2.5, like I understood it being the sharp side towards Golden State.
So Steph making his way back. Anthony Edwards might be out, but either way, I think we like Golden State in this basketball game. As far as a 2-star play, I like the Bulls and the Hornets under 234.5. These two teams have been cranking out unders lately, both 4-1 in their last 5 to the under. Charlotte over that span has had a top 7 defense. Chicago in that same span, league worst offensive rating. LaMelo Ball is out for this one. I'm not exactly sure how I feel about that as far as where the total goes, because he does so much of their scoring, but he also slows down their pace. So it's kind of a double-edged sword with that. But we're likely to see this Charlotte team just get stuck in the mud offensively, and Chicago's already there. So I think the under 234.5 is a good play.
Yeah, I actually sent out a tweet earlier saying this is going to anger some people, but I'm betting the Hornets under and Bulls under 235.5 simply because I think it gains closing line value. So seeing it here at 234.5, I think it's actually still got some room to go. I would still play it at this current number, like the under as well. Turnovers would be the only thing that you didn't mention that I think is going to be profound in this game. The Bulls just keep shooting themselves in the foot, losing the possession battle. Normally you play so high tempo so that you can generate extra possessions for your team. They're playing fast but turning the ball over, so it's just like you can't do that. And then Charlotte without Sexton, without LaMelo, and they've even been going and playing Sexton in crunch time and benching LaMelo prior to that. There were some spots that were like very eye-opening doing that. I think the loss of Sexton is a major driver in terms of pace because he's just moved so fast with the ball.
A quick shout out, by the way, for Michael Fiddle's own live show that he does 3 days a week, live at 11 a.m. NBA betting with Michael Fiddle. I tune in periodically. You do a phenomenal job breaking it down. And what I love about what you do is that you're very unapologetic in that you read the market. This is what you do. And anybody that listens to this show that's listened to you on Buckets knows how much we praise you for your market reading ability. I think that what is equally impressive is your ability to build content off of that, because it can be very hard in the position of somebody that is just simply saying, I'm betting this because I think it's going to have value. That's a good enough reason. That's not a podcast. And so to be able to marry those two, to me, as somebody who creates content for a living and also bets constantly, it's very difficult to do that. So my hat is off to you.
Yeah, I mean, I watch so much basketball. It's like the one sport. Today I had no bets on the NFL game. Today I am kicked out of my fantasy football league. Shout out to Fonseca. Um, so I have no reason to watch a Lone Island NFL game with no bet. Like I just won't. I just the NFL in that sense. I like football, but I could watch an amazing high school basketball game. That's how much I love the sport. So it's always easy for me to talk about it because I could weave in what I'm actually seeing. And often what I don't discuss is some of the things that I'm seeing in that might become edges. That's like always what I'm looking for is how can this be played and what is the market not pricing? That's just something that I'm always trying to keep eyes on throughout the league.
Awesome. And you do a phenomenal job with it. What is your 2-star play on the night?
2-star play for today is going to be Detroit, Atlanta over 231.5. I think as we've been talking, this has popped up to 232.5. I think it's got at least another full point to go. Have this priced at 233.5 towards the over, maybe even 234, even with Porzingis priced out for this game. These teams are still playing super high pace. Pace is obviously going to drive it. Tobias Harris back for the Detroit Pistons. So some nice mid-range and some forward scoring that you get off of Cade Cunningham for the Pistons in this spot. Pistons had a tough go against this Atlanta team without Porzingis, without Jalen Johnson. They won late, but they didn't cover, and it was just a sloppy game. So I think they're going to come out really focused. Some of those things that I try and pick up on is like, how are these like short order repeat matchups happening, and what do you tend to see in these games? And so if you find a team that underperformed, their level of focus and drive out of the gates is going to be a little higher. So I actually think Detroit comes out running and gunning and looking to score often. So I think that's just going to fit in the flow of this game. And so it's a clear over spot for me. So much so, Brandon, that I don't normally do this. And we could talk about the math of it if you're interested.
Yep.
I actually think it's worth parlaying this over 232.5 with the Pacers plus 7.5. That was the 231.5 and the plus 7.5 is actively submitted as a parlay for me, but I would still do it because these are best numbers in market. Should I break down the math for you real quick?
Yeah, please do. And can you also explain the difference for those that want to make smart parlays? Because they're not all dumb out there. These two are not correlated in any way. So What is the benefit to a non-correlated parlay? How does it work out to be a smart, sensible wager if there's no correlation between the two outcomes?
Okay, so I actually think correlation is the one place that I struggle with. And I actually think it's gotten to the point where a lot of the sports books will price things with a correlation factor in a same game parlay. Like theoretically, if you're betting two minus 110 lines that have completely no relevance to each other, let's just use like you're betting Pistons and a football game, like clearly no correlation at all, and you're betting minus 110s on each side, you should get plus 264, right? That's your standard 2-leg parlay with minus 110s multiplier and payout. I struggle with understanding and pricing correlation because I'll find things that feel clearly inversely correlated in an SGP and it's still sub 264, and I'm like, these things are clearly opposites of each other, but I feel like the sports books also struggle with that. And so they just throw a correlation tax on fucking everything. And it's almost becomes really hard to figure out and really hard to beat. So whenever I am submitting a parlay and I have a high degree of probability, this is going to become a plus EV parlay, submitting it right now is not plus EV. But by the time the game tips off, it is going to be plus EV because the numbers are going to change. So what I like to do, Brandon, is early within the betting cycle, right? When I'm betting overnights as a way to get more money down and increase my action and exposure on these lines, I will find places that I think are clearly going to close ahead and are best in market. I won't force it. And if there's a better line over here at this book and a great line over here at DraftKings, I'm not going to force it and mismatch best available. But if I can find the combination of best available in market and a high degree of both closing, like a high confidence in both of them closing ahead, then it is going to be a plus EV parlay at tip-off for the following reason. If you estimate a 55% hit rate, which with good CLV, I think that's a pretty easy hurdle to get over. It hasn't been true for me this season, but it is true long-term, right? If you have your plus CLV bets hitting 55% of the time on minus 110s, and minus 110 correlates to a 52.38 break-even rate. And so if you close a point ahead and you've accumulated that point as a win number instead of a push number or a loss number because the numbers have changed, you probably increased your win percentage when betting into a minus 110, you're 50-50, but you probably gain that 5% edge with having an extra winning number on your side versus the closing line. So if you assume that you have 55% win tickets, then betting it with a 2-leg parlay at 264 long term, if you're hitting 55% of them, is a 6% ROI. If you just bet them as straights, it's 3%. So you can use the parlay. If you're going to close ahead, then you could do it to get more money down, do it early in the market cycle, and win more money. So those are things that I like to do. I'm generally not a proponent of parlays. I'm not going to force it and go outside the boundaries. I'm not going to start guessing which spots close ahead, but high degree of confidence, best number at the same book, going to close ahead, I will parlay it.
So there's two things that I think that's phenomenal stuff. But for people that are listening to this that perhaps don't have a great read on the market, they're getting to that point. They're working on it. Yep. I think a lot of people tend to overvalue or overestimate their ability to price the number properly hours or day in advance. Would you caution those people against what you're saying? Like, just simply, you got to be honest with yourself that if you're not good at that, then you cannot take advantage of this parlay strategy.
Well, I think anyone that's going to be like listening to us this far in, yes, I agree with you. There might be a little bit of guess factor for more people than me in determining which way these markets are going to move. But I think if you're at least using the most fundamental resource in sports betting, which is an odds screen, and the Action Pro has, and we talked about it at the front of this pod, like there is a great discount for it. And so like you at least be using an odds screen, right? And check it the night before. Like the biggest thing I could say to bettors is don't just show up on game day to figure out what you want to bet that night, especially if you're not betting like into limits, right? Especially if it's not a how much money can I get down issue. If you're a recreational bettor, make winning fun by operating one day ahead. Like it's not asking that much to just do it the night before instead of the morning of or on game day a few hours before. And so if you just look at the odds screen, you should like check in once, maybe a check in a half hour later and see where numbers are moving. You'll start to see some of the movement happen, right? And so that'll start giving you an indicator and recognize patterns in the market. Okay, so and such team continues to take steam. Well, recognize that and try to start building that in and wait for there to be a stopping point or where the market fully catches up, or try and get ahead of injury news as a way to beat the lines. But yeah, if you don't feel confident in yourself, do it more in your notebook and start tracking your own success at doing it and just bet straights. But if you could build up to if you really like parlay betting and that's just like, I have a great, one of my best friends is a consultant for Goldman Sachs, or I think he's with Bain now, which is like these major financial companies, right? He loves parlays. Like he just knows, he just tells me, I don't care. I just like, for me, this is fun. And so I have to get that. Like he understands the concepts of plus EV trading. So for some people, that's just the way they want to bet. But if that is the way you want to bet, learn how to optimize it within your strategies. And that will become the highest version of fun, I promise.
Yeah, and to that point, you mentioned get out the notebook. I it's another layer of every year my tracking for my bets hits a new level, and tracking CLV is it's to me more important than even tracking your results, because that's gonna tell you a more accurate story of your long-term success. And keep track of that. Keep track of what you bet a number at, and then what the actual close was, and then you can get a good gauge of whether or not you're actually good at it. All right, let's move on
To that point, Brandon, quickly, I
Yeah.
believe the Action app can track your CLV.
Yeah, somebody on the production staff's gonna have to tell me how to do that. I track a lot on the
Hey,
Action
listen,
app.
I agree.
I don't know how to. I know that you're right. I know that I've seen
other
seen that out
people
there.
post their CLV charts from clearly Action's display. I'll figure it out, and I'll explain how to do it next time. It's not how I do it. I do track my CLV, but there is a way within Action to do it.
Yeah, actually, if you go to bet history and then scroll down, this is a valuable lesson right now that everybody's getting on buckets tonight. This is what you get when you get a 2-man buckets crew. We just go rogue. You can scroll down to the bottom. When you click on bet history, it says closing line value, and it will tell you how many plus CLV bets and how many minus CLV bets you have made. And this is a nice little indicator and a nice little confidence boost too, the way that one's looking right now. So yes, be honest with yourself. And then one other note that I wrote down is, I think this is really important stuff for bettors out there. When I started I listened to buckets well before I was ever on it, and I learned so much about sports betting listening to you and everybody else. And so I know, as somebody that used to be in the spot of the folks that are listening to this, how valuable this stuff can be long term. You mentioned getting more money down. For some individuals, they're not betting limits.
Yeah.
So that factor does that still come into play for somebody out there that's betting $25, $50 per wager?
No, you should be damn certainly betting overnights. If you're listening to buckets and you clearly care about NBA betting and you're trying to learn, and you're not just siphoning off the picks by going to the YouTube and scrolling to the end when we put up the graphic, right? Like, if you're at this point in the show, you care to a certain iota about winning. And if you're betting $25, then yes, then you should be betting overnights, and you should be learning how to do these things. And hopefully you could scale up, because there was a day, I don't talk about how much I bet, but I find it weird how everyone wants to post their bet amount and gets attracted to big bet slips.
Those are like
I really don't like the pocket watching, but there was a day where I was betting 25 and learning everything that way and building up that way, and that was where I started too. And it's eventually you get to the point where for me, this is what I do full time now.
Yeah, those are like betting thirst traps.
I was gonna say there's other big things I like to look at, but not big bet slips.
It is the sports betting equivalent of the selfie at the beach. All right, where are we right now? Oh, we got so off track there. We've done 3 stars. I believe we've done 2 stars. Is that?
Yep. And then I parlayed my 3 and my 2-star.
Right. Okay. So my 1-star bet on the night is the Grizzlies minus 6.5 against the Jazz. Memphis has been red hot lately, 7-3 in their last 10. They've been really good at home, especially as a favorite, 5-1 ATS in these spots. Last 10 games, Memphis 6th best net rating in the NBA. The Jazz, no shock, are 29th. I think maybe we're getting a slight discount on this number because Ja has hit the injury report, but I'm kind of good with this either way. So I'm going to go Grizzlies minus 6.5. I've played the other 2. I have not played this one yet. Kind of want to see what happens with the line tomorrow.
Is Ja Morant one of those players where you fade his return? Because I think this might be his return game. I think you'll end up with a good number if you're playing 6.5 now. You probably end up with a good number with him eventually in, because right now Markkanen is priced like 95% chance going to play improbable. Edie is already priced completely out. But I heard you say it about Steph earlier, and I knew that you were going to be on Grizzlies, so I got to ask how the Ja Morant factor impacts this.
Yeah, for sure, and that's why I haven't bet it yet, because I haven't These are that kind of thing is so case by case for me. And Memphis is playing so well. I do worry about someone like that. He is exactly the type of player that I'm talking about that I would typically fade. But this Jazz team has been even worse than usual. So this is as much a bet against Utah as it is a bet on the Grizzlies. But again, I haven't placed it yet, so I just have more research to do before I place a wager on this. But I lean heavily towards Memphis.
Yeah, my 1 star is going to be on the over on this game. 238.5 is still sitting out there in the market for this game. That's going to be an over for me, up to 240. This is going to be high tempo, especially with Edey out for this game, and especially in terms of the total. Brandon, like pricing Ja back in is definitely an over spot. He is a cone on defense, and obviously he's high pace on offense. So without Edey, they're going to run a lot less pick and roll. It's going to be a lot more of what they were doing last year, which is the Noah LaRoche offense, whereas a lot of just grab and go and not high screens. So I think this is a clear over spot. And so I think the best way to play it now is the over for Memphis and the Jazz. And to your point about Utah versus Memphis in this spot, at least Memphis is a fantastic home team, and the Utah's a terrible road team. Like, these teams both have strong home court advantages. Whereas if I was looking at the spot, me personally, I would rather have Grizzlies -6.5 and then get Ja priced in and it closed at 7.5 than be playing. And this is just basic market 101. Than be playing Jazz at 7.5 at post to fade the impact. I'd rather have the good number on the ticket.
Yeah, and to provide a better answer to your original question, this is the evolution of sports betting also, and I'm just talking about my own personal story. I've always liked the fade the returning star. But what I used to do when I started betting NBA is I would see the star returning, I would just bet the other side. Well, now there's a price to it. And even if I price in the star return bump down, I still have 1.5 points of value on the Memphis Grizzlies. So
right,
even with him back, I will actually like it less, but I will still like it a lot. So that's where I'm at right now. I have not gotten to the window on that. Before we get out of here, it is time for our Friday night NBA slate parlay presented by DraftKings. We're going to put our 3 stars and our 2 stars together for NBA Jam Solidarity. Golden State -4.5. We have the Bulls Hornets under 234.5. Pacers +7.5. And the Pistons Hawks over 231.5 at +1246 on DraftKings. That right there is a spicy meat the bowl. That right there also is your Friday NBA parlay presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. Fiddle, great discussion tonight. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you for all of your wisdom. Go check out his NBA betting podcast, streaming live 3 days a week on Twitter. That's a wrap, folks. Shout out to the crew, Michael Fiddle, our producer, David Payne. If you want to tail any of these bets, look for the quick slip link in the podcast and video description, or head to actionnetwork.com/bet now. Shout out to DraftKings as well. The crown is very much yours. We'll see you back here next time. And until then, let's get buckets.